Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of NBA Reels. Keeping it real with you, I'm Pranav, and we've got Arvind with us. So I know it's been a while, but just to update you guys on what's happening. I mean, I don't think you guys would have needed an update from us as to the things that's happening around the NBA because holy shit, what the hell has been going on in terms of blockbuster trades? The old guard going to completely new teams, and some players who you never thought were actually going to ever leave the franchise, which they were drafted to. And we've got that and much more. But first, I feel let's get started with the NBA finals. I know we did some analysis on game four, especially, but you know, we wanted to give you our thoughts about the finals as a whole, what it means for the legacy of these players, Brunson, Wemby, and whether this can be a repeatable matchup for years to come, or whether we've seen the last of Wemby or the last of Brunson, considering the fact that we never expected the Knicks to make the finals, at least in the traditional matchup sense. But yeah, what are your thoughts? Like, let's get started.
I feel like the Spurs definitely have their best years ahead of them. Now, that does not necessarily mean that they will be making multiple finals after this. They could, but with increasing parity in the NBA, we are seeing how there has not been a repeat finals team for the past 8 seasons. And that does not mean anything except the fact that the talent around the league is stretched and it's not concentrated in any particular division, any particular conference. This is the case with both the East and the West, right? And we always complain about how the East is very weak compared to the West and everything. But when you look at the last three finals specifically, 2026, the East won. 2025, the East was a Halley Achilles away from winning. 2024, the East won. So when you look at it, when push comes to shove, there is no weaker conference. And I feel like the talent around the league is definitely something that will keep us entertained for years to come. Now, regarding the Spurs and where they are, I think they have a lot to learn and they have to go back to the playbook this offseason. Because, in my opinion, I was pretty sure that the Spurs were going to win it all once they beat OKC in such fashion. They demonstrated extreme poise, extreme focus, and knew their game plan and executed it to perfection. And I had a nagging, lingering feeling that maybe they treated the Western Conference Finals as their NBA Finals. And it looks like
Yeah.
we were proved right on that one because it was an absolutely abysmal performance in terms of maintaining leads. Because the Knicks, every single game, came back from double digit leads, like double digit deficits. And that speaks more about the Spurs than it does about the Knicks after a point, right? Especially when you look at the collapse in game four, that was unprecedented. And I honestly did not expect that to happen. I think we spoke about this in the previous episode itself. When I saw the 29-point lead at halftime, I just went to sleep. I was like, yeah, there's no point in watching a blowout. But I
Yeah.
woke up to calls and texts to people telling me that you're missing one of the greatest games uh, of the NBA Finals ever, and that speaks volumes on how the Spurs are a very young team, very inexperienced team, and for them to make the finals in their first ever playoff run as a core is pretty good in itself. So I'm not gonna hold it against them after a point. But yes, I do think the Spurs have their best years ahead of them as long as their core stays intact and healthy. But they definitely have to prove themselves in the years um, coming.
Yeah. And like you said, um, I do think they have to go back to the playbook because I'll tell you why. To me, this was also like a bad game plan, as their collapses throughout the series after their big leads were indicative of a systemic issue. Like some kind of lack of mentality or some kind of big pressure moment which they hadn't been in too much. Because again, the Spurs lost to the Knicks not in like very ordinary fashion, like you said. They blew up like a huge lead. They had meltdowns at the end of games, and this reminded me of the Blazers playing the Warriors in 2019. If you remember, the Blazers
Exactly.
made that conference finals just to get
Yeah.
swept to a Durant-less Warriors, and every game the Blazers were up big and they just give it up. They just fold in the second half. And this is not to discredit the Blazers. The Warriors were built different.
You
You knew
talk
that
as
the third quarter
though,
run was coming.
yeah, you talk as though the Durantless Warriors were bums. They are the 73-9 Warriors. They just
Yeah,
had
yeah,
like a few games with the Rockets where they were able to come back in rhythm and they absolutely destroyed the Blazers, especially Steph Curry. I think that marked the most amount of points by a single player in a sweep in NBA history.
yeah. And
Like,
for me, right, like since
yeah,
I'd seen like a competitive series against the Rockets, and the Rockets, I feel, were the only West team that were actually giving the Warriors anything. And I kind of expected the same because a Blazers team that makes the conference finals, and especially with how long overdue it was, it's kind of like the same kind of scenario, right? Like you're not able to get over the hump. And
yeah,
it's also like the Lakers versus the Nuggets. And you knew that series they were up pretty much the whole time. And then, Jamal Murray hits the shot over Anthony Davis
yeah.
and they're up 3-0 and then it doesn't matter. The Lakers take a game and then they lose in 5. It's very similar. And I think that why I'm comparing these series is that the Lakers were never able to get over the hump against the Nuggets, nor were the Blazers against the Warriors. And credit where credit's due. This is not as like a apples to apples comparison because Wemby is clearly the best player on both the Knicks and the Spurs. I'll say that. Like I'll say that without any kind of like um, you know, regret. Because dude, I feel Jaylen Brunson was the best player in the finals, but Wemby is the best player overall. Like, you know what I mean, right? Like am I making any sense? So there's still potential for Wemby to uh, reach. He's not at the best he can ever be. His potential is still on the table. Whereas for a lot of these players like Dame and CJ, as well as LeBron and AD, like I feel their peak had already been reached by the time they were at this insurmountable hump. They had met the next level of talent. But Brunson met Wemby at the earliest stage of his career, his first playoff run. And there's sky's the limit from here. And you look at the West from now, it's a bloodbath. You don't even know if it's the Spurs. It could be OKC. But one thing's to say for sure, are gonna have the Knicks are gonna have a relatively um, safe championship to say that they claimed it rather than they got lucky because their run was spectacular. But
And
yeah,
one thing that
and
I really
yep,
loved is the fact that this is an injury-free championship, and
yep.
I'm glad that there were no major injuries to any
I
star
mean,
player.
no, Joel Embiid was not 100%.
Sure, but is he ever?
I mean, he did tell LeBron. I mean, this is for a later segment.
Yeah, but I mean, this is his first surgery-free offseason, so I'm looking forward to actually seeing his
Yeah.
MVP self come. But yes, like you mentioned, it's a topic for another part of the episode. But you can say that Jalen Brunson is in his prime, and Wemby is yet to reach his prime. But as of today, Jalen Brunson is the better player, as he showed in the series.
See, I think that's like a okay. Obviously, it's like in this series, I will have to admit. But overall, who do you pick to start a franchise? It's gonna be Wemby. I feel like
Sure, that's
overall,
exactly what I'm
yes.
saying. Wemby is a generational talent. Just because, like, this is the equivalent of you saying, for example, in 2007 when LeBron lost against the Spurs in the finals. This is like you saying LeBron's the better player because he's the person who's going to be the better player. Like, sure, but in that series, he was not the best player. That's the point, right?
Yeah, agreed. And
That's
looking at
that's
how Wemby
that's
played,
yeah,
also those two moments changed the entire series. One was Wemby passing it ahead to Stefan Castle at the end of game two, and obviously De'Aaron Fox, the veteran. We spoke about this not running the
yeah,
clock out in game four. And these two things might lead to serious repercussions. And I'll mention one of them. I feel like we can discuss that. And it's Dylan Harper. Like you said, the Spurs' best player was not Wemby in the series. To me, it was Dylan Harper because he kept them alive. And obviously, you can't discredit Wemby, but the biggest question for them going forward, I also think, was how do we keep Dylan Harper and how do we keep this team at the same level of competitiveness while adding talent? And, I don't think we'll speak about this trade a lot in our trade segment, but I'll mention it right now. They signed Tobias Harris at the four. And looking at their lineup going forward, this actually does address a few issues. And it probably should be Stefan Castle, Dylan Harper, Tobias Harris, and Wemby in the starting lineup for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who plays small forward for them? It can be, I think they can even plug Fox in that. Maybe run a three guard lineup like they did during the playoffs.
I know Keldon Johnson comes off the bench.
Yeah.
So that's either Harrison Bonds or Tobias Harris can switch between the forward positions themselves.
Yeah, correct.
I feel like
So
the
it can
ideal
be either
lineup,
one.
yeah, the ideal lineup would be. I think they still will have De'Aaron Fox in the starting lineup, so it should be De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, Tobias Harris, and Wemby.
They play Champagne at small forward, if I remember correctly.
Yes, Champagne is also a good option, but I feel like Tobias Harris should definitely be in the starting lineup, and Dylan Harper should definitely be
Yeah.
given more minutes.
Hmm. But yeah, it's a tough decision. And how do you develop Harper, right? Because with Fox on the floor, Fox is going to be handling the ball more. That's just a natural consequence, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
So they definitely have a lot to figure out in terms of playing time, and that's, in my opinion, the most important part of it because you would really need to capitalize on getting a player as good as Dylan Harper this early. Like he's 19 years old and he went toe to toe with SGA. He went toe to toe with Jaylen Brunson. And he obviously was one of the brightest spots for them for the Spurs in these playoffs. So I definitely want to see him get the ball more because the most important aspect, like we've discussed on the podcast before, is confidence. It's a hell of a drug, and he has a lot of it. So, given the confidence from the coach himself, can do wonders. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do with the Spurs in the playoffs going forward.
Yeah. But what do you think about De'Aaron Fox? Do you think they should keep him or try to explore trade options?
I see you can't just brand a player because of a couple of lapses. I feel like he's a pretty smart player, but this has to be his wake up call. This definitely has to be because we've seen videos circulating on how Mike Brown had this exact same problem with him about not thinking during clutch situations. And when he voiced it out on the Kings, Mike Brown was fired the very next day
Yeah.
while
Yeah.
De'Aaron Fox stayed. So, as an NBA player, you're always supposed to be keeping your eyes and ears open to learn, to be a sponge, to always absorb things that you're learning. Because LeBron is a student of the game even at the age of 41, 42. And that's the reason he's been successful for so long because he keeps learning. He's always open. His antennae are always open. And that is the reason he is as successful as he is. And NBA players, their biggest, um, I would say, advantage is the ability to learn from the best in the world. And I see De'Aaron Fox actually becoming and improving as a player, becoming a better player and improving as a player if he unlocks that side of his brain, which is to take constructive feedback and actually make changes to his game, be a more calm player, be a more collected and composed player in clutch situations. And like
But
it's
but
very
that's the
funny for
thing.
me saying
He
this
is
because yeah, he literally won clutch player of the year in while he was with the Kings. So it's very funny for me to even say this, but you can't. I don't think you can just trade him or everything when he's worked out so well for the Spurs this season.
yeah. Yeah. And they did have a finals run, like you said. So it might be
Yeah.
reactionary, of course, but yeah, I think with Harper developing at the rate he is, they might have to take a decision on this because they extended Fox, not knowing how good Harper would be, and it's a massive contract. So yeah, that might be one of the defining things that you know either make or break the Spurs' future going forward. But yeah, from
Yeah.
the Knicks' point of view, it's like a very similar thing, just the opposite side of it. Jaylen Brunson has proved everyone wrong with this kind of run because he is a humble superstar in today's league. And it's a kind of rare breed, and I have to appreciate it. And look at the contract he's playing on. He bet on himself while leaving Dallas. He said, I'll be flexible for the city of New York. And people initially criticized it, um, asking, like, is he really worth that money? Is he, actually that good of a player and everything? And they actually really doubted whether he was worth his contract. And I remember Becky Hammon going on record saying, you can't win a championship with a small guard. And look at his playoff runs ever since he joined the Knicks. And honestly, from being compared to Luka to surpassing Luka, he's come a crazy way. Right now, consensus, I don't think this is debatable. Jalen Brunson has a better legacy, and honestly, he's a better player than Luka Doncic if you just look at the numbers. Based on ability and potential, obviously, we can say a lot of things, but achievements and talent and playoff runs wise, he is he is as many, if not more, conference finals. Same amount of finals, more rings, and finals MVPs as well. So that's crazy. Did you think we'd be talking about Jalen Brunson versus Luka this quick, especially after that run where Brunson won against the Jazz and then he got traded and then Luka made the finals the very next season? And yeah, just goes to show you, anything can happen in the NBA. Just, I don't know, absolute idiots.
It's pretty interesting because the ring culture that we have going on has completely skewed people's perceptions of how good a certain player is. You're telling me Luka Doncic is not a better player than Jalen Brunson?
Right now, I'll be real with you. I feel like in terms of talent and ability, he is. But in terms of achievements and legacy, right now, I don't think Luka is on the same level as Brunson. And
That
Luka is
is
having the
that
same problem
is
Kyrie has.
no, that is definitely something that I would agree on in terms of achievements and what he has.
Yeah.
Definitely, the championship weighs a lot. So I would say that is leaning towards Brunson at the moment. But if you give both of them the same squads, I feel like Luca can take them further. Don't you think?
That'll be a good debate. But again, Luka's style is similar to Brunson's, except Brunson's much smaller and he's not as much of a heliocentric offense as Luka is, at least this year under Mike Brown. So, maybe it will take a different type of coach to coach Luka in the way that it takes to win him his championship. Might be Redick, might be someone else as well, but I'm
Yeah,
not talking about ring culture. I'm just talking about, you know, I don't know how to say it, dude. Like, I think Brunson needs to be appreciated more for what he did for the city of New York, for how much
for
he
sure.
sacrificed in his contract, for how much he sacrificed his game to elevate like that team offense that Mike Brown is known for, especially with Carl Anthony Towns buying into his role. And another thing to appreciate, Cat, really not understanding his role throughout the season. He went on multiple press conferences saying that he doesn't know his role yet. He's still working it out and everything like that. And then finally becoming that focal point of the offense that helped them beat the Hawks after going down 2-1, mind you, and
Yeah.
then having two consecutive sweeps. And, the rest is history.
And
So,
I feel like he was the
just
biggest defensive factor to hinder Wemby's offense. His presence in the paint, his presence, his agility to move around with Wemby, to always stay in front of him, to put a body on him, it definitely was the X factor, in my opinion, in how he shut Wemby down as much as he could. And I kind of dislike having debates on which player is better than the other, especially when we look at a player having accomplished something as big as winning a championship. Like, while we can have debates about how if you give player X and player Y the same squad, like okay, like I said, Luca can go further or Brunson can go further, but it's always going to be a debate at the end of the day because players change, their games evolve, and you can't really put a finger on predictions. That it's a pretty slippery slope when you go that route, and the best way to go about all this is just to enjoy with what you have right in front of you, the teams that they're on, the squads they have, and the effort that they've put in the off season, the changes that they're making to their game, the additions they're having, and so on and so forth. So it is. I would say it is unanimously acceptable that Jalen Brunson is one of the top three guards in the league right now.
Yeah, and the other two would be SGA and Luca for sure. I don't think there's anyone else who'd disagree with that. But yeah, I
Yes.
mean, at the end of the day, looking at the New York Knicks' squad, they criticized Mikal Bridges' contract initially. They said they gave up too much. They criticized Cat for his passiveness. They criticized Brunson for being small, which is again weird. And it's a kind of redemption for Cat, Brunson, Mikal, and everybody. And kind of feel bad for Dante. He couldn't be here. But yeah, honestly, an insane achievement. And I hope that they can replicate it. But looking at the East right now and looking at some people who woke up after this Knicks championship, it may or may not be likely. But yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any other thoughts about the Knicks or
Yeah, I think we covered most of it, but something that I'm just not able to shake off is the fact that the Spurs won all the first 5 quarters by a combined like about 57 points. And this is the only finals series on record where every single game was within 5 points in the last 5 minutes. The Spurs led
crazy
every
stuff?
single game and almost got swept. And that is the story of number one, the comeback kings, and number two, the inexperience.
Yeah.
But I'm
Sums it up.
excited to see what both teams have in store for their future, especially with the East being stacked right now. Are we going to see the Knicks repeat, at least going back to the NBA Finals, or are they going to be stopped by a familiar foe?
Yeah. I think we'll move on to our next segment. So I think, as everybody listening knows, the NBA trades this season were absolutely diabolical, and I don't know where to start. Like I think we'll start with the first one of the first few, which may have been a little surprising, which was Giannis finally leaving the Bucks and going to the Miami Heat. And this was a crazy deal because, Miami also were a little hesitant to trade away Tyler Hero in the past few years, and they finally pulled the trigger. And the deal is that the Heat get Giannis and Bobby Portis, while the Bucks get Hero, Kelel Ware, Jaime Jaquez, and a few picks and one or two more players. I think one of the number 13 picked already, became drafted, and they have a few more picks in the 2030s. And this was just a one-to-one trade. No other teams were involved. And you know, after 2021, I feel this is the first good news that I've heard regarding Giannis, other than the Damian Lillard trade, obviously. But yeah, what are your thoughts to Giannis to the Heat?
I trust in the Heat organization and Coach Spo to make magic happen. We saw how the Jimmy Butler era was in South Beach, and how they were always underestimated and how they always overachieved once the playoffs rolled around. I don't know if I expect the same amount of firepower from Giannis as we saw from Jimmy, but I would definitely go out on a limb and say that we're going to definitely see a different Giannis. More driven, more
Yeah.
focused, more motivated, and overall better skill set too, if I may. And the way the Heat have coalesced into bringing out the best versions of themselves when they have like a solid leader is something that I'm looking forward to seeing this year with Giannis. Can he and Bam make some noise in the East?
I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? Bam is the second best scorer in NBA history. Like, it's pretty obvious.
It's
It's
Wilt,
Wilt, Bam, Kobe.
Yeah. So I was gonna say Wilt, Bam,
Don't
and
forget.
Kobe. So Giannis has another legend on his team. So I'm excited. Bam. My biggest problem with Bam is the fact that he does not have a reliable jump shot. But if they can make up for it with other players, what's to say?
Yeah, and they lost Norman Powell in free agency, and he signed with the Bulls. I mean, okay, buddy, we know your ass ain't making another finals.
I think, yeah, after a point, see, if you're an NBA player, you've won a championship, you've had a few deep playoff runs. After this, your motivation is just the money. So I think he went to a place that he
Yeah, and I
liked.
think with Miami being like that strict about body fat percentage and all, like he just didn't want that anymore. He wanted to go to a chill place, play with Josh Giddey, have a chill, run through the regular season. And yeah, I mean, it is a little difficult, I guess. Um, One way I'll say that this trade really affected the NBA as a whole is that Milwaukee didn't win any playoff series since 2021. They've won one, if I remember correctly, just one. They've had multiple first round exits throughout the course of this uh, past 5 years, and quite literally, this saga couldn't have ended sooner for both Giannis as well as the Milwaukee Bucks. Because look at it, after that 2021 chip, they've had three first round exits and they missed the playoffs entirely this year. And their record was nothing to write home about, 32-50. And in my honest opinion, Milwaukee should have ended this sooner, but they should have also gotten a better trade because why the fuck wouldn't you get Jaylen Brown for Giannis? Especially, at least they could have said, fine, fuck it, we'll just take him without like that other guy. Oh my god, I can't even remember his name. Um, Dude, they wanted the Bucks said no because the Celtics were not willing to give up one of their
Peyton
young
Pritchard,
players. No, 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 no. Okay, let me just like quickly. But yeah, I mean, it might come back to bite them because quite literally, it does not seem likely that that player will blossom into what the Celtics expect him to be. And I don't think it might be as good as Giannis anyway.
don't get me
But yeah,
started on how the Celtics try to salvage the situation of having lost the honest trade. We will definitely be getting into that in a few minutes, but I feel like Giannis has been pretty vocal about wanting to go to a place with um, low taxes. So
yeah.
I think he's pretty happy about going to Florida. So
Yeah. And yeah, looking at it as a whole, yeah, I do agree with that. But I feel Giannis would have been competing better with Tatum by his side rather than Bam because Tatum, in my opinion, is a more well-rounded player, whereas Bam is he is okay between Bam and Tatum. Yeah, I would say Tatum is the better player, but Bam has his strengths, especially on the defensive end, and Tatum is coming back from Achilles. But yeah, we'll have to wait to see how the season progresses, especially because the Miami Heat do have Davion Mitchell. They've re-signed Andrew Wiggins to a contract, and if they can get their magic working with their undrafted players like they did with Jimmy Butler every single season in playoffs, you never know. This team could actually make a deep playoff run. But with the East also getting a little stronger, it's getting less likely as the more we think about it. But yeah, I'm very excited. Their paint presses is going to be unmatched. So
yes,
this is going to be absolutely legendary.
I'm
Let's
looking
move
forward
on to
to
the Celtics,
seeing.
please.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the Miami Heat in the playoffs. But like I mentioned, the one thing that I really did not understand is the Celtics trading away Jaylen Brown, their Finals MVP, for 36-year-old Paul George and a few picks.
Yeah.
That is it.
The kind of ripple effect that it had is, and I finally figured out who it was, by the way. It's Hugo Gonzalez, a player that, you know, a young prospect that the Celtics did not want to give up for Giannis. And this is a guy that was drafted last season and he averaged 3.9 points, 3 rebounds, and zero point 0.5 assists last season. And he is untouchable in a Giannis trade. And this is why the Celtics now don't have Jaylen Brown. They basically traded Jaylen Brown for an aging Paul George, and they both make the same money. what do you even say? How do you even rationalize this trade? Is this the worst trade of all time? I know we already made a segment about that saying the Luka trade is the worst, but I think this is very close.
There are definitely similar points in both trades. Like you're trading away your young superstar for an aging um, veteran superstar, I guess. If you can call PG that. But they definitely needed to move on from Jaylen Brown or Tatum because looks like they weren't going to work together. But at the same time, looking back at your comment on how Giannis and Tatum could have worked, I feel like that the same problem would have been there. Like, who's the number one? Like, Tatum would have wanted to be the number one. Giannis would have wanted to be the number one because, let's face it, Giannis has been the number one on teams he's been successful on. So, you always have that problem when you have two superstars who are looking to control their team, who are looking to
It
be
could be like
leaders.
a Steph KD situation though. Best player team wise and the best player overall. Because we both know Giannis is the better player than Tatum, right? I think that's unanimous.
Yes, but you failed to take into account the amount of selflessness Steph Curry had in those years. Not everyone can do that. Not everyone can come off a 73-9 unanimous finals MVP season and immediately flip the switch onto being the passive number two option and number one option when your team needs it. It is not possible. You can't flip the switch like Steph
Unanimous
Curry.
MVP, bro. Not finals MVP.
Did I say finals MVP? My bad. Unanimous. Yes. I'll let me correct myself on that one. The unanimous finals MVP that year was LeBron James. But yeah, the only unanimous MVP in league history. So not everyone can play that role as good as Steph did. Even Dwayne Wade struggled his first season playing that role. And from the second season is when they were able to make it work. But I don't think Tatum is going to make it work with Giannis, who's a complete outsider when he could not make it work with his buddy, who he's known from day one. So I feel like this was for the best, but not this. Because what is PG going to do apart from maybe mentor Tatum?
And PG already missed 25 games last year because of that
Yeah,
anti drug policy that the NBA had.
exactly.
Insane. And I mean, rationalizing this from Philly side is pretty easy. Like you just get back a finals
Yeah.
MVP for a bad contract you gave out. I
You know,
mean,
the
dude,
worst part that I will never understand is the fact that the Celtics blew a 3-1 lead to the Sixers this year. How can you trade your best player, or at least your one of your best players, who has had the best career season in like 8 to 10 years, and how can you just trade them to the Sixers? Trade them to the Sixers. Like you have a rivalry.
I'll be open. I've always loved the Sixers in the East. I would have always supported them. And now I have all the LeBron fans behind me supporting them too. So feels like a big family. So I'm happy.
I know you are. I cannot believe that you and I are finally rooting for the same team.
I'm rooting for my Rockets and Kevin Durant in the West, but odds are I feel now Philly has better odds of making the finals. I'll be real. I don't think the Rockets are making the finals this year. Maybe if Fred Van Vliet goes back to 100% and Marcus Smart goes back to his DPOI level, there's a chance. But I think it'll be Spurs or OKC versus Philly versus Knicks, Philly Knicks Heat. It can be anyone in the East. That's why I feel East is a lot better to watch this year. So I will be rooting for the Philadelphia 76ers this season for sure, as I've done every single season since 2020. But yes.
Yeah, you seem to really like mediocre teams. I mean, Philly is not mediocre anymore, but you got to focus on whether your Rockets are going to make it past the first round before you worry about anything
if I
else.
recall, if I recall, you said the Celtics were beating Philly, and after they went up 3-1, I was the only guy watching the games.
Yes. I refuse to believe the Celtics would blow a 3-1 lead to the Sixers because of the mental edge that they have had over them in the
Yeah.
past few years. Like the Celtics have come back from multiple deficits against the Sixers, and in my opinion, there was no way that they were blowing a 3-1 lead. But here we are. I'm a happy man because I like to see the Celtics get humbled from time to time. So, but yeah, this trade does
And
not make sense to me. I will have to wait and see. I think it's going to be a very interesting season for us to actually track how it's going to look like for both teams. But it's definitely a win for the Sixers and a loss for the Celtics as of now.
yeah,
The
yeah,
next trade that I'm highly interested in materializing is Kawhi Leonard going back to Toronto. It is frozen as of now because of the ongoing investigation into the Clippers. But if this trade goes through, it would be a great team fit for Kawhi because he has a very similar player in Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes can literally mirror Kawhi's game, and with the amount of effort that they had poured into their first postseason um, run against the Cavs, although they were short, they fell short in 7 games. I feel like the future is bright in Toronto, and especially with a healthy Kawhi, most importantly, a healthy, available Kawhi, I feel like they can make a deep playoff run. And this is what I'm talking about, right? Like the East is back. This is the first time Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James are in the East. And it's crazy to say that out loud because the year LeBron left the Cavs was when Kawhi was traded to the Raptors. There are many speculations ongoing on how the Raptors were able to make it to the finals only because LeBron was not there in the East. So this year, it's going to be interesting to see.
yeah. That
Uh,
season, Braun didn't make the playoffs, so stop the riding.
it
But
was not because of his play; it was because of him getting a freak injury for the first time in
because
his
of Mario
career.
Hezonia dunking on his head, bro.
He had
Hezonia
a
stepping over Braun,
he had a
we thought it was
chokehold.
over.
He had a chokehold on the East for 8 years. So it is. I'm not going out on a limb if I say that if he had stayed in the East, he would have gone to a ninth straight finals.
Yeah, would have been likely. And it would have been a crazy matchup, I feel, because I feel they beat the Bucks. I feel LeBron would have beat the Bucks if they had a decent squad. But
Yeah.
I still think Toronto wins that. Or Philly. Because quite literally that one game seven bounce is what is stood between Philly and that championship, in my opinion. No one's beating Philly. They were too good. Butler, Embiid, Simmons, Reddick, Tobias. What unfair team, dude. Like, but yeah, again, I don't want that same thing happening this year because they have an even better squad this year. So
Yeah.
yeah, but okay. Looking at the Kawhi trade, it's like you mentioned on hold, but you know it could go on till 2027. There is no timetable officially given by the NBA, so we could see Kawhi likely playing on the Clippers when the season starts. So this trade has been agreed to, but we don't know if this will actually go through, depending on the investigation. But based on how the ratings of the season go, I feel it'll be done sooner rather than later. I don't think Adam Silver is going to be like, oh, dude, we would like to prioritize this over getting our ratings back up with Kawhi in the East. So we'll see. We'll see. At least that's my thoughts. And this is a legitimate coming back home story and because of the fact that Kawhi's championship in 2019 was so good, and he chose not to come back. It was a 1 year rental, and he chose to join Paul George in LA. So
Yeah.
they had previously traded away SGA for Paul George. So it's like a pretty bad trade for LA because I don't think their squad is even good. And they've now traded away both of their players who they gave away a perennial MVP and finals MVP for. So, it's just horrible. Horrible if you're a Clippers fan. And apparently they even tried to lure LeBron in to stay into LA. They offered him like 20, 25 million every year to come to play for the Clippers, and LeBron rejected it.
Yeah.
So,
LeBron's not going to go to the Clippers. He's not going to go be part of the other team in LA.
yeah, yeah.
So,
But one big conversation I think we've always had this is what are your thoughts about Brandon Ingram now that he plays for the Clippers and not the Raptors? I was huge on Brandon Ingram, and I'll be honest about it. I was wrong. He's not that guy, and I don't know if he ever will be. He lacks that big game performances. He lacks that big game mentality, and quite literally, I was big on him in LA. I thought he was better than Kuzma. I still think he's better than Kuzma. He was horrible on the Pelicans. He was horrible on the Raptors. Quite literally, the Raptors benched him, and then they got better. They unlocked Colin Murray Boyles. They unlocked, RJ, and I don't know. What do you say about this?
I feel like it's he's probably going to average like 15 points a game and just stay a regular player. I don't see him making any big strides on the Clippers. Uh, I'm excited to see Darius Garland though, and I'm curious to see how he can work with Mathurin. Um, they're a pretty good combo. They're driven young individuals, and I see them making some noise in the West. It's funny because the West, at least the perception I have of the West, is it feels a bit weaker than last season, and sure, it definitely could be attributed to the fact that Kawhi Leonard's back in the East, LeBron James is back in the East, and all that. But it's I feel like this creates a lot of room for a lot of teams in the West, a lot of good teams in the West. For example, the Phoenix Suns had a very underwhelming season last year, and if they can make some noise this year, now that they have like new additions like Miles Bridges, for example, I feel like that could be something that could reignite the spark for Devin Booker and Dylan Brooks. They have a pretty young squad. They have a young squad full of talented NBA players. So I'd be interested to see if they can make some noise come playoff time. But another interesting trade to the West was LaMelo Ball joining Anthony Edwards in Minnesota. So the trade was LaMelo Ball and Josh Green going to Minnesota, while Charlotte got Nas Reed and a few swaps. Now,
And
I
yeah, it was
feel
a
like
four-team trade.
the I feel like the Timberwolves' success heavily banked on the fact that they had multiple bigs. Rudy Gobert and Carl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert and Nas Reed and Carl Anthony Towns. You could plug in whoever you wanted at any given point of time. With Rudy being the helm of the defense, Cat and Nas could focus more on the offensive side as well, while having their imposing presence on the defensive end. And even when they traded Cat, they made the conference finals again. So I thought, okay, maybe the Nas Reed and Rudy combination is doing a pretty good job in itself. But now that they've traded away Julius Randle and Nas Reed to the Hornets, I don't know what the next steps are looking like for the Timberwolves. Like they don't have a big who can actually create some offense. And in today's NBA, that is a must have. So while I understand the reasons for the trade, they need to definitely figure out something if they want to be competitive in the West. And I don't know how Lamelo Ball and Anthony Edwards are going to work, but it's definitely going to be must-watch TV with their antics and shenanigans and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, yeah, that's a very good point about the Timberwolves having a defensive identity throughout their past few playoff runs. And
Yeah,
with you never know, but don't you think that one of the bigger problems that they had, especially in this last postseason, was being stifled by a lack of offensive creators? They relied on Ant heavily. Julius Randle was horrible every time he
yeah,
got the ball. And defensively, they were okay because McDaniels is amazing on ball. And obviously, Rudy is a presence inside the paint. And I think what they're banking on is to just make Jaden McDaniels play the four, not the small forward, play the four alongside Rudy because McDaniels can shoot. And that'll mean you have four active shooters. Um, Not talking about Ja Morant yet. Um, but it'll mean they have Ant, they have Lamelo. Both of them can create their own shot and pass it, and they'll have Dante DiVincenzo maybe when he comes back playing the three, Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert, which is a very good starting lineup in my opinion. And Lamelo Ball, me personally, I would have liked Nasri to stay. I'm
yes,
sorry,
I agree.
yeah, like you said, he is amazing and he's a six man of the year in 2023-24, and he is, in my opinion, one of the best um, rotational players that the Minnesota Timberwolves or any team would like to have. So yeah,
Yes.
I mean,
I know there were a lot of speculations in the past of the Lakers wanting to get Nas Reed. Like the Lakers just wanted everyone, man. But definitely a must watch player, and it's very rare to have a big man have such a quick release from the 3 point line. And one of his biggest advantages was his shooting. So wherever he goes, it's going to be a great run for him. He's going to have a good role, good shoes to fill in. In Charlotte, I think it's going to work great with young players like Con Knoopel. And it would be nice to see a culture of shooting get created in Charlotte. You know what I mean? Because I feel like this is how the Warriors started out. Like Draymond started shooting. Steph was obviously the head of the snake, and so on and so forth. So a young team like Charlotte, they could definitely make some noise if they had the right players surrounding them. So I'm excited to see how
yeah, and
that's
Brandon Miller
going to
is
play
also
out.
really good.
Yes.
Correct,
So
correct.
like you mentioned previously, let's go to the Ja Morant trade. So the Memphis Grizzlies traded Ja Morant to Portland for Jeremy Grant and Chris Murray. So we see Ja and Dame joining forces. So this is going to be Dame's comeback season after his Achilles tear, and we're going to be seeing Ja actually in action after quite some time. So, what do you think about their fit together?
Yeah, and before we go to Ja, I feel it's a good thing to mention. Ja Morant on the Blazers is very similar to LaMelo Ball on the Timberwolves. You have a high octane scoring first shooting guard paired up with a pass first point guard. And I'm not saying Ja isn't a scorer by no means. He's a great passer, and like LaMelo, he's very explosive and has a very unconventional game. And it's a very apt comparison, in my opinion, to see how both of them will fit on their new squads, because I don't think LaMelo and Ant will be a bad duo by any means, but they both have similar deficiencies. Ja is not the best defender by any means, nor is LaMelo. And to mesh with someone who has to take up a very big offensive load is sacrificing a little on the defensive end, and that's where it'll come in to picture. It could be a Luka Kyrie type situation where the offense is so good and you have enough defensive minded players to
Yeah,
fit the gap, or it could be like you just fizzle out like Dame and CJ back in Portland. You might have a great offense, but like their offense might not click at all times, and then you might fizzle out a little earlier than you expected. So my thoughts are Ja Morant. Now I'm excited that he's going to be playing and in a system where he's accepted, unlike Memphis, where the coach quite literally did not agree with the style of play, and Ja also did not exactly see eye to eye. And I hope he comes back from all the controversies that he had with the 8 game suspensions and the 25 game ban to open the season in 24. And another thing is, don't you think Portland has way too many point guards? They have Drew, Dame, but apparently Drew might leave. So if he leaves, it makes sense. But they have Drew, Dame, Ja, Scoot. You have like 4 or 5 legit starting point guards. And yeah,
yeah. It's definitely going to take a lot to make it work because there's only one basketball that they can all work with. So I think practice
yeah,
runs,
yeah.
running drills should give them a great idea on what to implement. And
But yes, Denny Avdia will be the X factor. He's their best player. I would say
yeah,
even over Dame. It's Denny, Dame, Ja. And this three is honestly a great trio. It'll be very exciting to see how far they can go with this.
talk about LeBron James to the Philadelphia 76ers. The Kings back in the East. And what implications this will have. The East is now packed instantly because, all the focus is going to be back on the East. So far, with LeBron in the West and, the West being star studded and heavy, I feel like the East was a bit neglected. But there have been a lot of questions on how this is going to work because there's only one ball and everyone's usage rates are high on the Sixers, like Tyrese Maxey, LeBron James, Joel Embiid, and Jaylen Brown. And honestly, we have seen how good LeBron can be off ball. And My question is if the others can make it work, if the others can
No,
stay
but
healthy.
he's not going to be playing off ball, dude. Like, I think he's basically said that he's going to be playing point guard. This is his return to point.
That is true. That is true. But
Yeah.
yeah, it is definitely going to be interesting to see his role evolve throughout the season. Because while, like, sure, you can look at PG LeBron from 2020, who he led the league in assists, and uh, என்னடா? So okay, let me fucking just not talk about that off bullshit. Okay, let me okay. Okay.
LeBron playing off ball. He sucks. He's the worst off ball player on the Sixers.
Okay. Okay.
Maxi, Jaylen Brown, Embiid, all are better off ball. They can all shoot better also. LeBron's better on point.
Okay, yeah. So there have been a lot of speculations on usage rate because everyone's usage rate on the Sixers is pretty high from last season. So we have seen reports that LeBron's going to be playing the point guard position for most of the season. And I saw a recent video on Maxi's backdoor cuts and how fast he is, how quick he is, and how he gets those feeds from Embiid primarily, and Paul George. Just how quick he is off to the rim. So it's going to be very interesting to see if LeBron can lead the league again in assists. It's going to be historic if he is able to. But I think the main focus is to get the other guys set, like in terms of the offense. Because I know LeBron has voiced out the fact that he's not going to be leading much on the defensive side. So I think that is the reason they moved away from the point guard position back in 2020 because the defensive responsibilities, coupled with the complete on-ball responsibilities, were too much, especially with LeBron aging. So I think that's definitely going to be a factor that Nick Nurse will have to weigh in. Speaking of Nick Nurse, I'm really excited to see how he can work with LeBron because he's one of the smartest coaches in the league. He won a championship in Toronto as a rookie head coach. So he's definitely one of the best defensive minded coaches out there. And I'm going to be very curious to see how he can make it work with LeBron and Jaylen Brown getting into the mix this season. But again, yeah, I've seen a lot of edits on the Sixers starting lineup and whatnot, and sure, but I just want this to not be another case of a failed super team or anything that sort, but more of a cohesive team because we have seen how LeBron has voiced out that this is going to be his last stop, and what that means is everything, all efforts have to go into making these 2 seasons very memorable for everyone involved. So
Yep.
I'm very confident in the fact that the players are going to go into these 2 seasons with utmost seriousness, keeping their health as the topmost priority and team chemistry as something that needs to be blossoming over the next couple of seasons. I do not believe the Sixers are done making moves this offseason. I would like to see them get more role players who can play 3 and D. So
I mean, they did get Anthony Simons. They've also signed Kentavious Caldwell Pope, who has proved that, he's
yes,
won multiple championships.
he is one of LeBron's most successful teammates, I would say, like in terms of being a good 3 and D and catch and shoot guy. So yes, I'm excited to see how this LeBron signing will work with Philly. But it's up to it's going to be up for a toss when the season starts. I'm not going to assume anything. We can't predict anything, obviously, with the off season. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm
But
excited.
I'm very excited also because in my opinion, the biggest thing that this trade contextualizes is Joel Embiid has not yet made a conference finals. Will he make one? And maybe even a finals or a championship. And for Tyrese Maxey, it gives him the experience of playing with LeBron, who LeBron is also very excited to play with Maxey. because he's also part of the same agent. They're both signed to the same agent, and VJ Edgecombe is going to be playing alongside the most stacked roster in his second season itself. He's going to be playing alongside a former MVP in Joel Embiid, a four-time MVP in LeBron, a Finals MVP, former Finals MVP in Jaylen Brown, and Tyrese Maxey, one of the most lucrative up and coming stars in the NBA. So this is going to be very interesting to see how they fit in Edgecombe with all this, as well as what they are able to do with this roster. But to me, those are the biggest points as to why this team should naturally succeed. But yes, it'll be contingent on everyone buying into the system. And, this could be the Kings' last real shot as a championship, especially this year, because in my opinion, I'll tell you why he took a player option in his second season. I feel like he's going to go back to Cleveland for his final season. So this Philly thing might be 1 year if he ends up winning a championship. He might go back to Cleveland for one last year as a farewell tour, and they'll have the documentary ready, they'll have the cameras out, they'll have everything. So, might be good to enjoy it while it's there. So I'm very excited for
That's an
LeBron's final
interesting
two
take.
seasons.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. I don't think he's going to go back to the Cavs. I think he's not like he honors his commitments. That's definitely what I've seen from LeBron.
But
Like,
it's a player option, right? Like I feel LeBron has always had a no trade clause.
I mean,
It's his
he did
decision.
mention that this is going to be his last stop. So no more stops. Yeah. I don't think he's going to go back to Cleveland, but it'll be a really big twist if he does. But looking back at the Lakers and how they're doing, Austin Reeves just signed a 4-year, $185 million deal, and the Lakers got Walker Kessler, Quentin Grimes, Colin Sexton, and a few more role players. And I feel like they're a pretty good squad right now. Luca wanted his center, he got one. And I think the players that they've got, like Quentin Grimes, for example, he had a really great season last year. So they are looking pretty good. It's definitely a matter of health. If Luca can stay healthy, and if Austin Reeves can
If they
overcome,
mesh.
yes, and whether they mesh, and if Austin Reeves can overcome his offensive struggles come playoff time, because yes, he has been good in the regular season progressively, but the playoffs have not been his brightest spot, especially last season against OKC. So I think number one priority is health. Number two is fit for the Lakers. And it's going to be interesting to see how they perform in the post LeBron era. Like, can you believe that this was LeBron's longest stop of his career? Like 8 years with one team consecutively.
Yeah, that's actually insane. Like now that
Crazy.
because he had multiple stints with the Cavs, but never longer than 7 years. I think
Yeah,
2000
7.
when he got drafted
Yeah,
till 2010 was his longest stretch
yeah,
other than this. Yeah,
3 to 7. Yes,
insane to
exactly.
think about.
But yeah, I'm going to be watching how they perform this season for sure. But another interesting free agency signing was Mitchell Robinson going to Boston. He just won a championship with the Knicks, and he signed with Boston, one of their biggest rivals.
Yeah, and I think Boston does require those kind of bigs, like you mentioned, right? Like, alongside Tatum, they need a more complete roster now that they don't have Jaylen Brown as well. So essentially, now it's come down to Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Jason Tatum. Obviously they'll play Paul George, and now Mitchell Robinson maybe gets a start, but Mitchell Robinson has a lot of flaws in his game which need to be addressed. So I don't know if this is the best pickup for them, but it's definitely a solid pickup in terms of rebounding and you know
Free throw shooting.
defense as well. But yeah,
He's the worst free throw shooter in NBA history.
insane to think about.
That is actually insane.
But yeah,
But this is the one of the most exciting off seasons that I've been part of, especially because of the fact that as a LeBron fan, I have not been in this position in say 8 years, like holding my breath to see where he goes and what landscape is going to change. But I feel like it definitely presents a lot of possible scenarios in the East. I'm looking forward to see how that plays out. Is he still going to be the king of the East? That's going to be the biggest question. Like after 8 years in the West, is he going to be back at the top of the East? Because if he does, it would definitely be a story tale ending to one of his last 2 seasons. But yeah, we still have a lot more to talk about during the off season, and that's my favorite part, right? Because the off season does not have anything going on except like the free agency or the trades and anything of that sort. It's not like every single day games happening where records are being broken, fights are happening or anything of that sort. That's my favorite part about the off season. We can talk about speculations, we can talk about predictions, we can talk about potential players, like at how they could go off on their new teams. And I think that's what we are going to be covering this the rest of the off season. So make sure to stay tuned, and we'll be back with more episodes. So until then, it's Arvind and Pranav keeping it real with you guys. Thank you.